Minecraft, but there are custom swords. In this video, we'll be exploring the 109 custom swords added by the Moar Swords Datapack. This is a datapack I have been developing for the past couple of years that has been shown off by quite a few popular YouTubers in their videos. And at this point has around 350,000 downloads. So this video will look at every single sword in the pack with a very brief explanation of what it does as well as how to craft it. It is worth realizing that the swords in this pack need to be made in the sword crafter. To make this, we just need a crafting table and a wooden sword. That will give us this knowledge book, and you can click on that to get the sword crafter. To use the sword crafter, simply place it into the world and follow the recipes as they show up on the screen exactly as they are shown. Alright, let's jump right into what the swords do. The glass sword does pretty much nothing when it has full durability, but the lower the durability of the sword, the more bleeding damage it will do to mobs. And if you hit multiple times, the bleed will get even worse. The Claymore is a very high damage sword, dealing 12 base, but you can see that the swing speed is really slow. The Dolphin Sword gives you Dolphin's Grace while in water, making you swim really fast. The Redstone Sword causes lightning to strike when you are standing on redstone dust that is currently powered. The Endstone Sword will sometimes cause mobs to levitate when you hit them, and sometimes also randomly teleport them. The Cobweb Sword, when you hit a mob, will slow it down in cobwebs for a little bit. The Note Block Sword plays a musical note sound when you hit a mob. The Blaze Rod Sword comes enchanted with Fire Aspect 3, normally unobtainable in vanilla Minecraft. The Ender Eye Sword will tell you how far away the nearest stronghold is. So you see that said 2,400, but suppose we fly in this direction a little bit and then hit a mob. It's now a different number, 2010, so it's probably one of these directions. And that got further away, so we know the stronghold is that direction. The Copper Sword slowly oxidizes as you hold it. The more oxidized it gets, the more poison damage it does to mobs. In the process of swinging though, you deoxidize the sword. The Amethyst Sword spawns small amethyst shards on the ground that cause explosions. The Deep Slate Sword deals 4 damage while above ground, but while low in the world, deals 7 damage, which is the same as a diamond would. The Golden Carrot Sword gives you 20 seconds of night vision when you hit a mob. The Chain Sword binds a target in chains, making them unable to move. However, they can still attack you, so do be a little bit careful. The Bell Sword stuns a mob with a loud sound, keeping it stuck in place for a short time. The End Crystal Sword deals an increasingly large amount of damage per hit. So it starts at 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, then 64, then 128, then 256. I think the health bar didn't adjust due to it not having AI, but you can see 8 hits to kill the Wither. The Nautilus Sword is mediocre outside of water, but while in water, it is pretty strong. The Wither Skeleton Sword deals a bit of extra wither damage to mobs, along with being a 7 damage sword. The Turtle Sword makes you slow and resistant when you hold it, pretty much exactly like the Turtle Master effect would. The Anvil Sword drops an anvil on a mob's head when you hit them. Very powerful. The Conduit Sword makes all nearby mobs that are in water take damage. It is pretty powerful against range of mobs, but if they're outside, it does nothing. The Totem of Undying Sword acts like a totem and will save your life in the event of a death. The Enderman Sword allows you to teleport randomly on right click. The Breadstick can be eaten on right click, healing half a hunger haunch, and you can eat it fairly quickly. The Beacon Sword will give you a random beacon effect on hit that will last for 16 seconds. The Tough Sword is pretty much a stone sword, but with netherite durability, 2000. So, yeah, it's a very tough sword. The Name Tag Sword will give a random name to mobs you hit with it. It could be a first or a last name or both. The Notch Sword will make mobs drop an apple on the first time you hit them. The Egg Sword will drop an egg every time you hit a mob. The egg can't actually ever hit them, but it could spawn a chicken. The Cactus Sword deals 8 damage to mobs, but you'll see I take 3 hearts every swing. So definitely one you can kill yourself with. The Coal Sword will place a torch if you hit a mob in darkness. The Coral Sword gives you regeneration 3 while you are in water, and it doesn't give you anything when out of water. The Bookshelf Sword will occasionally make hit mobs drop enchanted books. The books are enchanted between level 1 and 30. Similarly, the Netherrack Sword will sometimes make mobs that you hit drop quartz or gold nuggets. The Potato and Hay Bale Sword, in a similar vein, are meant to also do the same thing. Hay Bale Sword sometimes makes them drop wheat, and Potato Sword sometimes makes them drop potatoes. These are all intended for you to set up with, say, like a mob spawner farm or some other manual hitting mob farm. The Pumpkin Sword will place a pumpkin onto the head of any mob that can wear it. So that could be like a zombie or even like a pillager. Any mob that can wear something on their head, even like a villager, I believe. Yep. However, a mob like Creeper that cannot wear a pumpkin on their head will not get one. The Melon Slicer causes an explosion of melons that will deal damage in a bit of an area. And this is of course best to try out on a large group of mobs. You can see that they all take some damage. The Sea Pickle Sword will place sea pickles on the ground, and it places a random amount between 1 and 4. The Brick Sword stuns mobs in place for a short time, much like the Bell, except shorter. The Diorite Sword is simply the best sword ever made. When you use it, you, wait, never mind. You get poison and nausea. So, the TNT Sword causes small explosions to occur on the mobs you hit. This doesn't deal a ton of damage, but they generally take a bit of fall damage and do a little bit of world damage. The Paper Sword can be swung as fast as you want, and it doesn't actually deal damage, but it does cause paper cuts, which deal bleeding damage. The Glass Pane Sword is a really low durability sword. It only gets 3 uses, but it deals 12 damage. It cannot be enchanted or repaired though. The Dripstone Sword makes a bit of dripstone fall on a mob. This is kind of like the Anvil Sword from earlier, except it deals a lot less damage. The Sponge Sword is a utility sword. When you hit a mob that is near water, it will drain all of the nearby water in a bit of an area around it. The Ice Sword will freeze a mob in place for a short time and then unfreeze it. The Obsidian Sword starts out by doing 10 damage, but I've already used it a bit, so it's already down to 9. And the more you use it, the less damage it will do. So now after using it for a little bit, it is down to only doing 3 damage. The Slime Sword will launch a target up into the air to take a good chunk of fall damage. The Lapis Sword gets enchanted randomly when you craft it. That was really loud, I'm sorry. But now that we have 8 of them, you can see this one's pretty good, not so good, pretty bad. Pretty bad. The Prismarine Sword deals no damage outside of water, but if your target is in water, it deals very high damage. The Quartz Sword deals no damage in the overworld, but very high damage in the nether. The Emerald Sword only deals 4 damage to non-raiders, but to raiders, deals very high damage. The Shulker Sword causes mobs hit to levitate into the air for a bit. 1 chest down and only 1 to go. The Piston Sword has knockback 3 on it, dealing really high knockback. The Sticky Piston Sword has negative knockback on it, pulling mobs towards you. They normally get a hit or 2, but I don't know. It's funny. The Magma Sword has a chance to inflict burning. When it does so, it is a strong burn. So this will last far longer than a regular fire aspect sword would. The Honey Sword is swung really slowly, but deals a very slow, sticky effect to mobs. They even leave like a bit of a honey trail behind. Similarly, the Flower Pot Sword will make mobs you strike stuck in a flower pot for a bit. However, they can still hit you, so do be careful of that. The Glowberry Sword causes mobs to glow for a short time. The Moss Sword will place random moss block carpets down into the world. The carrot sword will give you night vision for a short amount of time, much like the golden carrot sword. I think it's just half the duration. The chorus fruit sword will sometimes randomly teleport mobs. It's pretty rare though. There we go. The cursed sword deals really high damage, but it has a small chance to backfire and deal a load of damage to you. Like this. There we go. And you can see I took a decent chunk of damage. The fireworks sword causes a random fire explosion to occur where you hit. Very bright and colorful. The swordfish, besides being a good pun, deals some poison damage to mobs occasionally. The glowstone sword causes a really long glowing effect to occur on mobs. The sign sword will place a random sign down into the world with the name of the mob you hit on it. So the husk is a husk and then creeper is a creeper. Cool. The bamboo sword causes bamboo spikes to pop out of the ground, dealing some extra damage to the mob as well as slowing it down. The sapling sword places a random sapling into the world when the mob is on a plantable surface. The mycelium sword gives nausea to the victim randomly. Only issue is nausea doesn't work on mobs, so this one only works on other players. The snow sword causes a very quick freeze to occur to mobs. This is much like the ice sword from earlier, except just not as good. I've been referring to it as the budget ice sword. The sand sword deals nothing special while on grass, but while on sand, you can pull mobs down into the ground and cause them to suffocate. This would work on players as well. The stick sword just does 2 damage, and it is meant as a training sword to practice your sword swipes. The soil sword blinds mobs, but, well, doesn't actually work on them. And finally, the wet sponge sword does pretty much nothing special against most mobs in the game. However, against the hydrophobic mobs like Enderman and Blazes, it counts as an instant kill. Oh, and snow golems too. Alright, that is actually all of the swords from More Swords. Now we just need to look at more diamond swords and more crazy swords. There are, of course, the 16 stained glass swords in More Swords. However, these do exactly what the glass sword does, so no difference there. But, I mean, you can have a really long title of light blue stained glass sword as your primary weapon. Moving on, we have more diamond swords and the vampire sword. This is a pretty unique sword. So if you hit a mob, you will take some damage, you will be set on fire, and you will also get some regeneration, as you are seeing. And you'll of course deal some damage. And that's because vampires dwell in darkness. So you have to use the sword while in darkness. Otherwise, you will get punished with taking some damage and being lit on fire. But when used in like a cave or whatever, the regeneration and the overall attack power is pretty good. The Ender Diamond Sword is a utility sword. You can right click to teleport, and it has a bit of a cooldown. But you'll teleport in the direction that you are looking. The XP Sword and XP Star Sword will give you a little bit of experience on the first hit of a mob. The XP Star Sword is just extra. This is extremely powerful at XP mob farms or whatever in boosting their output by sometimes around double. The Invisible Sword doesn't show up when you hold it in your third person. While of course mobs don't care about looking at their items that you're holding, players do. So you could use this to deal 6 damage, same as an iron sword, but it looks like you're punching. The Rainbow Sword, besides looking fabulous, will make a mob drop a random die on the first hit. This one is great at killing mobs as you can force them to die. Die, you get it? Die, no? Okay. The Darkness Sword will only deal 1 damage when used in light, but when used in darkness, it will deal 11 damage. The Light Sword is the opposite. When in light, you will deal 9 damage, but when in darkness, you will deal 1 damage. Alright, that's it for more diamond swords. Now on to crazy swords. So to start, we have the Poison Sword. This is an upgrade for a diamond sword that makes it deal poison damage. Poison doesn't work on husks, but if we had, say, like a creeper, the creeper will get poisoned and take a little bit of extra damage. The star sword is a really overpowered weapon. It can be swung super fast and is the same damage as a netherite sword. So basically, just a super speedy netherite sword. The butter sword sometimes drops opponents' weapons. If they're holding it, they can sometimes just drop the item. The lightning sword causes lightning to strike where you hit, as well as stunning the mobs for a short time and making you not take any damage from the lightning itself. You could take damage from the fire though, so do be careful of that. You'll see that mobs hit do not burn though, so you don't actually catch them on fire, but you stun them for a bit. The backstab sword deals pretty mediocre damage when you are facing the mob, but if you get behind it, you'll get a critical hit and deal loads of damage. The critical hit sword has a random chance, just like that, to critical for massive damage. It's a pretty low chance though, so we got pretty lucky to see it the first try. The all or nothing sword instant kills anything that does not have 15 health after you hit it. So on our 5th hit, we got it down to 15 health and thus it died. But something like, I don't know, one of these horses over here probably doesn't have 15 health. That one does. This one does. That one does. But this horse right here doesn't, and so it instant dies. Oh, and on a player, they need to be under 5 health for this to instant kill them. It was way too overpowered at 15. The God Sword was kind of just a joke item that I added. It deals 50 damage and is really boring. And finally, last but not least, is the Loot Sword. It is just a sword enchanted with looting 5. So you'll end up getting more mob drops of every type of mob drop in the game. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed that video outlining exactly what the 109 swords that I've added to the pack do. Kind of crazy that I've developed that many, but you guys seem to have enjoyed it, so I am glad you have. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, hit that subscribe button if you want to not miss out for future videos to the channel, and I'll see you guys all in the very next video. Thanks for watching.